After 15 years of saving every spare penny, Michael Reynolds had finally achieved his dream of owning a lakefront property. The charming 3-bedroom cabin with its private dock wasn't just a weekend getaway. It represented freedom from his high-stress job as a forensic accountant specializing in fraud cases. His first month at Pinecrest Lake was paradise. Morning coffee with eagles soaring overhead, afternoons perfecting his cast with a vintage fishing rod inherited from his grandfather, and evenings watching the sunset paint the water gold. The peaceful rhythm shattered when Patricia "Patty" Blackwell seized control of the HOA in a contested election that saw only 12 of 60 homeowners voting. Michael first encountered her while installing bird feeders. She materialized behind him like a designer-clad specter, clearing her throat and tapping a manicured nail against a laminated copy of HOA bylaws. Section 4.12 clearly prohibits unsanctioned wildlife attractions. Patty declared, despite the fact that half the properties around the lake had similar feeders. When Michael pointed this out, her smile tightened. The others will be addressed. I'm starting with the newest members who haven't yet learned how things work at Pinecrest. Before leaving, she added ominously, I've been here 20 years. This lake has standards, and I intend to maintain them. The bird feeder confrontation was just the opening salvo in Patty's systematic campaign against Michael. Each violation became increasingly absurd. His canoe was an unauthorized shade of green. His welcome mat had excessive bristle length, and the wind chimes on his porch exceeded the acceptable decibel range. While other residents received occasional notices, Michael's mailbox overflowed with them. At the monthly HOA meeting, Michael arrived prepared with photographs documenting identical violations throughout the community that had gone uncited. Before he could present his evidence, Patty announced a new meeting format. Residents could only speak if pre-approved, and grievances required submission 3 weeks in advance on special forms available only through her personal email. The final straw came when Michael's sister visited with her 2 children. They had spent the day building a small sandcastle on the narrow beach beside his dock, only to have Patty arrive with a measuring tape and level, declaring it an unauthorized structure exceeding height restrictions. She demolished it with her foot while the children watched in tears, claiming she was just enforcing the rules everyone agreed to. What she didn't realize was that Michael had been recording the entire interaction on his phone, evidence he planned to use at the right moment. Michael returned from an exhausting 3-day fraud investigation to find his property transformed into a private resort. A massive inflatable hot tub dominated his dock, surrounded by lounge chairs, portable cocktail tables, and a makeshift bar. Extension cords snaked from his outdoor outlets across the lawn, powering the hot tub, a margarita machine, and color-changing underwater lights that pulsed beneath the surface. Inside the steaming water sat Patty, holding court with 4 other women, all board members' wives, their jewelry glinting in the setting sun as they sipped from monogrammed insulated wine glasses. An expensive Bluetooth speaker blasted yacht rock at a volume that made nearby fish jump. Michael. Perfect timing, Patty called out, waving as though she were welcoming him to her home. We're conducting an important assessment of dock structural integrity. The community dock is under repair, so we're using yours as a control group. When Michael demanded an explanation, Patty lazily handed him a damp piece of paper, a dock requisition notice she'd created that morning and signed herself. Section 8.3 of the bylaws allows emergency access to all waterfront structures, she said dismissively. It's all perfectly legal. What she didn't mention was that Section 8.3 applied only to emergency services during natural disasters. As Michael stood there, Debbie Fisher, the quietest board member's wife, had the decency to look embarrassed, whispering, I told her we should have asked first. Patty silenced her with a glare before turning back to Michael. We'll be done by Monday. Maybe. The assessment might take longer if we encounter complications. For 2 days, Michael documented everything. Videos of late-night hot tub parties that violated the very noise ordinances Patty weaponized against others. Photographs of extension cords creating trip hazards across his property. timestamps of their 2 a.m. gatherings that contradicted their claims of official HOA business. The final indignity came Saturday evening, when he discovered they had moved his grandfather's antique tackle box to make room for a portable ice maker. The handcrafted cedar box, the last gift from his grandfather, had been carelessly shoved aside, causing the brass corner fittings to separate from the wood. That night, while Patty and her entourage were at the lakeside restaurant celebrating her husband's birthday, Michael made 3 important phone calls. One to a sympathetic board member who provided the real emergency override codes for the HOA security system. Another to his sister, an environmental attorney specializing in watershed protection. And a third to his best friend who happened to operate a drone photography business. As darkness fell, he carefully moved his grandfather's damaged tackle box inside, photographing the broken corner in detail. Then, he reviewed the actual HOA bylaws, highlighting the sections that Patty had fabricated or misrepresented. Finally, he checked the weather forecast. A significant wind shift was expected around dawn, with gusts up to 30 miles per hour blowing directly toward the center of the lake. Michael rose before sunrise and brewed a pot of his best coffee. He set up a comfortable chair on his porch with a perfect view of the dock and the lake beyond. At precisely 6:23 a.m., he disconnected the extension cords from his outlets and carefully coiled them on his lawn. Then, wearing fishing waders, he entered the water beside his dock. With methodical precision, he untied each of the 6 anchor ropes Patty had attached to his cleats, leaving just one final tether. He then disconnected the pump system, ensuring the hot tub would slowly lose both heat and firmness. Finally, he unhooked the last rope, giving the inflatable structure a gentle push as the morning wind began to freshen. By 7:15 a.m., Michael sat enjoying his second cup of coffee as his friend's drone captured magnificent aerial footage of the hot tub, now resembling a slowly deflating island, drifting majestically toward the center of the lake. Inside it, the remnants of last night's party bobbed in increasingly chilly water, empty champagne bottles, floating plastic cups, and an abandoned inflatable flamingo drink holder. At 8:42 a.m., Patty screeched into his driveway, still wearing yoga pants and slippers. She stumbled down to the dock, designer sunglasses askew, frantically searching for her aquatic kingdom. When she spotted it in the distance, now just a sad, sagging shape against the blue horizon, her shriek scattered a flock of geese from the nearby shore. "You!" She pointed at Michael, who continued calmly sipping his coffee. "Do you have any idea what you've done? That hot tub costs $12,000. Michael smiled pleasantly. "I simply unplugged unauthorized electrical equipment from my property, a safety hazard according to Section 5.7 of the actual bylaws. As for your personal property floating away, perhaps you should have secured it properly to an authorized structure, which my private dock is not." He handed her a thick envelope. "Inside you'll find documentation of 37 bylaw violations committed by you on my property in the past 48 hours. Also included is an invoice for my electricity usage, structural assessment of dock damage, and environmental impact report regarding chemical and thermal disruption to a protected watershed, courtesy of my sister's law firm." As Patty sputtered in disbelief, Michael held up one finger. "I almost forgot. The drone footage is being live-streamed to the community Facebook group right now. There's quite a lively discussion happening. You might want to check your phone." The following week, an emergency HOA meeting was held in the community boathouse. With record attendance, the residents of Pinecrest Lake voted 58-2 to remove Patty from the board. The new president, a retired judge who had quietly endured Patty's selective enforcement for years, made his first official act the installation of a large sign by the community dock. All watercraft must be properly secured. This includes hot tubs. Michael's bird feeders went back up that same day, along with a small memorial plaque on his restored dock, "Granddad's Fishing Spot, where treasured things stay anchored." The plaque was unanimously approved by the new HOA board, right after they voted to award Michael the coveted Neighbor of the Year certificate for his outstanding commitment to environmental protection and community waterway safety.